Nobody likes being rejected. That's not fun, and a lot of people don't like to fail. And I've been there. It sucks. But again, it's back to that thing, like, I couldn't live with not trying.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the What You Don't Hear podcast. This is a life podcast. It's a story podcast. It's a deep dive conversation into getting to know someone and what makes them them. And it's hosted by me. I am your host. My name is Ross Theisen, and I bring you this episode live from Columbus, Ohio, the place that I call home. I am a creator of many things, a pursuer of many things, but most importantly for this, I'm a podcaster. And in this episode, we will talk about doing all of those many things, quote unquote, that I just alluded to as I sit down and get to know my friend and fellow person of many passions, Alex Chaney. This is Alex and I's first real sit down together. As I take a dive into getting to know him outside of just the internet. We chat about how he found music to be his main passion and how that led him into his band, A Story Told. And we chat a lot about that as well as mainly the idea of how he tries to be all in on all things. You'll hear that phrase be thrown around a couple times throughout this episode, and I'm a big fan of that. So how he can be all in on all different things while chasing and accomplishing multiple passions at once, and that's something that I definitely related to. So it was a fun one. And one quick note before we get into it, this is the first episode available in full in video form. So you can watch this episode while listening to it if you'd like. So head over to YouTube and you'll find it there. The link will be posted with this episode's release post. So just want to throw that out there. You can now watch these episodes as well as listen to them. So let's finally just get into it. Here is my What You Don't Hear conversation with Alex Chaney. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, well, Alex, this is your official welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, I cannot express to you how actually excited I am to have you on this show.
Same.
Because there's multiple reasons. So like, one, you do a podcast now. So I love the fact that we're just going to sit and be podcast buddies.
That's right.
And be on
chat,
a podcast.
Yeah.
But you and I have known each other for a long time, but not known each other.
I know.
At all.
Right.
But we've always kept in contact.
We've never sat down. Right.
Yeah, we've never really sat down except for like that one time. I think I sat down with you guys.
Right, and that's probably almost a year ago at this point.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
And that was more so about like business, band, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But this one is all about you. And so I'm just stoked to get to know you.
Yeah.
I'm stoked to
Same.
like take the deep dive, and there's so many things that I want to talk about. So before we dive into too much, the first thing I want to ask you is tell me about the podcast. Tell me what it's like. Like, that's the one thing that I've been like dying to talk to you about is you recently started a podcast. What's it been like?
Man, it's been a trip. Yeah, the podcast is called Happy Unhappy. And I definitely never pictured myself being someone that started a podcast. I love talking to people. I love diving deep, talking about really anything at all. But really, especially like with the state of the world, obviously it's given us a lot of time. It's given us a lot of time to think and consider some of the things that we've wanted to do that we just told ourselves we didn't have time for until this. And so topic-wise, it's I think it's similar to you. What you don't hear. Like with this, it's diving a little bit deeper, and my conversation is about like what happiness and fulfillment mean to people ultimately. Kind of talks about the journey of the process, that kind of discussion there. But it's been a trip, dude. It's been really fun to have these conversations. Obviously, when you're jumping into it, you're like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you do all the research. You're like, I'm sitting on the computer, how to start a podcast, what questions to ask, and that, and so much of it you can't learn until you have the experience. Totally. But I'm so glad I did it. And even just like getting the feedback from the people that I have, it's been cool for, all ready to make any amount of impact. And that was just my thing. Was like, if it can like mean something to like at least one person, like that's cool to me.
Yep, 100%. Well, I'm a fan.
Thanks,
I have
dude.
been listening since you started it. I'm a huge fan, and
Yeah.
I just feel like there's so much space for more podcasts like that.
Right. For
Like,
sure.
and clearly, like, it's so funny. Like, I don't know if you felt this yet, but like, whenever you like say you have a podcast or you're talking to somebody about it, I feel like it's become such like a pop culture thing now that it's like, yeah, I have a podcast.
Right.
What's up? Like, do you want to hear my opinions on things for an hour?
Right.
Like, and it's so hard to be like, well, I try to make a different one. I try
know,
and take
yeah.
a different approach. But I love the reason, or I guess the meaning behind the show. And I love what you're like. Again, I love when there's podcasts that are feeding into that side of things. So
Right.
it's like, let's have the conversations that not a lot of people are having that much. So I guess like the other thing I want to know is like what made you want to start it? You know, was
Yeah.
it just like, hey, I've got a bunch of time? Or, you know, you kind of explained like, I love having conversations. But what was it that made you officially just be like, you know what? It's time to record these conversations, make a show out of it, and like everything that went into it.
Right. I mean, that's really such a tough question. It was not like one particular instance, but like I said, discussing like what happiness and fulfillment means to people is everybody's answer is different. And those are like the conversations that you're not having in passing. I mean, a lot of times, even when you're like having deep conversations with people, you're not discussing that topic specifically. And for me, it was like finding the balance of like, you know, you bring people onto your show, you obviously I want to hear about them. Like they're the guests. This is what it's about. So it's finding the balance between like, this is the answers I'm trying to get out of the podcast, but I'm also leaving room for, I want the audience to know who you are to give some context. But I think everybody is looking for an answer there, but my opinion is there's not one answer. And so one week somebody's answer might mean nothing to somebody that's listening, and then the next week it might mean something, you know. So it's like if I can be, you know, go at bat one for 50, you know, somebody listens 50 times, but they finally hear that one that they're like, oh yeah, hell yeah, like that's cool. That's what means something. So yeah, that's pretty much why I did it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I was going to dive into like the band stuff because I'm so curious of like catching up on that thing as well. But I feel like I just want to dive in and let's like lay the groundwork and really build up who you are. And then we'll catch up the timelines, then we'll get to the band stuff. So I'm sure there's so much stuff there. So I want you to lay it out for me. Tell me the story. Where does Alex come from? What is childhood like? What's growing up like? Tell me all about you.
Right. So I am from the state of West Virginia, from a small town called Hurricane. It's about 20 miles outside of the capital city. I grew up playing music, singing. My family's super musical. So it was just kind of like, that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, I mean, like moving up through school, I was in band, you heard of show choir. You live in Ohio, so you've heard of show choir. Did that whole gig, went to school for music. I feel like I always knew that I was creative. I always just saw it as like one outlet, which was music. So I went to college studying vocal performance education, and realized that that's not what I wanted to do. You know, I love music. That's what gives me a lot of meaning and fulfillment for sure, but there are other ways. So I had some friends that were creative as well, in photography, videography, and I was like, hell, I'll do that. You know, I don't know what else I want. You know, the creative story, like the path to creative, obviously everybody's really different. I wouldn't say like I had that spark moment. It's like, I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to like do incredible work. It was just kind of like cameras are cool. Like photography is cool. You know, everybody like starts out terrible too. You know, you take your photos and you're like black and white sepia. Like it's incredible.
These railroad tracks are amazing.
Watermark as big as possible.
Right.
You know, so it's fun to like look back and laugh now. But yeah, I've always been interested in like just so many different things, and I feel like you and I are pretty similar, like in the sense of just like putting in the work, learning new things, never becoming complacent. And I think that it's like, it's been a blessing and a curse, you know, because you obviously like you're accomplishing things, you're learning new things, you're meeting new people. And, but I don't know about you, but like one of my problems is like stopping and like appreciating things along the way. So I think that ties back to my podcast is like, more often than not, the messages that I'm getting, like, I need to hear them too, because I am constantly like, man, I need to like stop and just like let's just look around and appreciate what we've done. Even you sitting here right now, like, look at this table, look at this setup. Like, you told 8-year-old self you'd be like, I don't even know what that is. Told yourself 18-year-old, you'd be like, no way. So I think it's important to like stop and take a minute to appreciate where you are, but it is it's a blessing and a curse.
100%. I feel like that is one of the things that I'm the worst at, to be honest.
Right.
I feel like actually just like it's one thing to sit and be like, okay, like appreciate the journey, appreciate the process, like look at those things. And I feel like in the moment, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I totally appreciate the journey. Like I get it. Like I'm good.
Right.
But then like I'm also 5 seconds later, I'm like, what can I do next? That wasn't good enough. I need to do this other thing. And like, it's so like literally even like this podcast, like this is, you walked in and you were like, hey, this is really cool. And I was like, this is the very first time I'm trying long form video for a full episode.
Yeah.
And like, for me, it's like, even setting this stuff up today, like I literally was like kind of caught up where I was like, God, there's just so many extra steps to like, just get to the conversation.
Right.
Like, I hope it's worth it. And who knows who's going to watch it. But it's like, you also have to catch yourself, and I need to like remind myself like, okay, well, I have the ability to even try this.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And I have the ability to even do the video for one, but to sit down with a longtime friend and really get to know them better and have it captured and share that and put it in a form that hopefully inspires somebody or hopefully motivates them or just is an enjoyable story to listen
to.
Yeah. So it's hard to not get, it's the classic like stop and smell the roses thing. Where like I feel like I always get caught up in like how many more roses can we plant though, and it's like what about the ones you did plant?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, those are great, but look at this other garden over here. Like, how can we plant more there? So, in your whole process, it kind of sounds like creativity was just like a nice like nourished or nurtured thing.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't, because I know some people are like, I kind of wanted to be creative, but parents or family was like, you better ace everything, or you better do sports, or you better, anything like that. And you said, was music a part of like family growing up, or?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that sort of like growing up around that easily for sure planted in you like, okay, these are just all things that I love. This is more stuff that I want to be interested in. Like,
it was like I mean, like being musical, writing music, singing, like you're a creator, it's just, I didn't know in what way, like what that was going to look like. So I think it's really cool. And I like daily, I try to remind myself, like we just talked about, is like just having the opportunity to do any of it, that I'm here, that I have the chance to do music or take photos, do videos, start a podcast, just like all the opportunity. And whether or not you believe you like got yourself there by yourself, which is probably not true. You have help along the way, but yeah, I think it was just that. But yeah.
So what was, I guess to dive a little bit deeper into that, what was it that like made you feel like you could try all these things? Because I feel like every kid in a way, is creative. You're always coloring or you're drawing or you're, whatever it is. But like, I feel like maybe we're similar in the way where even when I was a kid, I obviously wasn't thinking of business plans.
Right.
But I was always just like fascinated by the idea of like, oh, what does it mean to start a company, or what does it mean to have your own this or have your own that? And again, I didn't know what any of that meant. I wasn't like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. But I was fascinated with the idea and wanted to try so many different things. For a couple months, I really wanted to be like a dirt bike rider. For then a couple months, I wanted to be, a skateboarder. And then, you know what I mean? Like, I was always, it wasn't just like fascinated with the idea of like, oh, letting my imagination run. But there was always just something extra that I was like, I really care about this thing and really want to learn it. So growing up, do you feel like it was just a base level, like, hey, creativity is around me? And I am, those seeds have been planted. So of course I'm going to be creative. But what do you think it was that like made you actually pursue those things? And I don't mean as a career just yet, but just I mean just in general, like the interest, the ability, or not ability, but the want to actually learn those things.
Right. I think It was keeping my eyes open to like opportunity around me. Like, I think for like a lot of my life, I mean, and this is for, I would say here in America, like U.S. culture, it's just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, go through high school, get good grades. Now you're supposed to know what you want to do going into college, and then you go into college and then you do it. And I think for me, a lot of things just felt like that's what I'm supposed to do next. That's what I'm supposed to do next. I think for me, it was just like being aware of like opportunities that like present themselves. I think when you're like so caught up in your daily grind, your daily like this is what I have to do, and you're not open to like what that day could bring itself. Like I know I might be getting off a little bit, but um, I think that's what it was like, and I think it's okay for your life to have phases. Like you just talked about, like what do you say, dirt biking?
Yeah, yeah.
Dirt biking, yeah. It's like I longboarded for like a year, and then I was like, man, I'm over it. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
Try things, like see if you're good at them. Actually, like feel like you can be the best that you can at whatever that is, and then like give up on it, and then move on to something else. I mean, obviously, you have like a lot of your anchors in life. As creatives, like whatever the format is, like there's going to be constants there. But I really think for me, it was just like I hadn't really like looked up and seen the opportunity and be willing to try new things because I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So
we get into like, and if I skip over anything major, 100% be like, well, before we get there,
right,
this crazy thing happened.
right,
But when you're getting into like high school and all that sort of stuff, I feel like that is where, and I feel like I say this so much, but I feel like that like time frame is really where like the creative side of you can die in a way.
right,
Where like, I'm not saying you're never ever creative, but that's when, okay, like real life, I'm starting to be an adult. I'm starting to realize, what parties are, what just hanging out
Right.
with friends are, what casting, whatever interests I had kind of aside are. And then especially when you graduate, like you mentioned with the whole college thing, it's always kind of pushed as like, you're going to graduate, you're going to choose a career, you're going to go to college. So explain to me, like, what does that time frame look like for you? Is that like where like you really discover music of like, hey, it's been around, but I really want to try this? Or, what, I guess paint that picture for me of what does high school Alex look like?
High School Alex is a little bit of a douchebag.
Really?
Yeah, just a little bit. Like I said, there's things that you're involved in, and like when you excel at them, like you get egos and and stuff like that. So it really was like graduating high school was a drop off for me. Because if you get invested in extracurriculars, like it's insane to me that high school is only 4 years of your life. When you see 4 years when you're not in high school, it's like no time.
Yeah.
Like it's such a pivotal part, like a very important part. But like if you're so invested in those things, like and you aren't paying attention, it's like everything you've invested in is gone and it's starting over, obviously. So I mean, my musical journey has been like so all over the place. Like, I grew up in Christian home, got involved in church and stuff like that, and then high school was show choir, performing, singing, dancing, and then college is classical. You study classically, and it's like educates all the theory, all those sorts of things, and you take piano and stuff like that, and it's like I excelled at oral theory, which is ear training, and then I failed written theory. It's just like a bunch of like my musical journey's been so all over the place. I transferred to a different school that was closer to home. I went to high school with Josh. Josh is a member of our band and plays guitar. Him and I write all the music. But I met him when I went, or not met him. I went to high school with him. He was a senior when I was a freshman. So yeah, when I transferred back to that school there, he was like, hey, I knew about his band. I helped him with like a design thing, and then like something happened with their singer. I don't even know if you knew that I'm not the original singer. They released like an EP, and they played like one show. And anyway, so something happened with that. He was like, "Do you want to be the singer of this band?" And I was like, "Why not?" Like I said, opportunity. There it is. I'll do it. I'd never been in bands. I grew up on pop punk, all that, and but I was just like, okay, let's do it. And like that was 7 years ago at this point.
And so in that, like you mentioned, like going to college for music, was that kind of like that was the thing that you were like, this is what I'm sticking with? Again, you said your journey's been everywhere with that,
right.
But that was kind of the tangible thing where you're like, okay, as long as it involves this is what I want to go for.
Right.
It wasn't like I want to go be an attorney. But then, I guess I like singing too much.
Right. No, so I went to West Virginia University, which was 3 hours away from my hometown. So like I said, failing written theory, excelling in oral theory. I made like the university choir. I was the only freshman that year to make it. Anyway, at the end of the year, I flunked out of the music program. So I was no longer a part of the program. I lost my scholarship and didn't know what I wanted to do. So I took a semester off and moved home. So, I mean, taking time off from college, just the general idea around that is like, oh, you're not going back. You're done. So it was like a weird thing where I had to figure out what I want to do. I'm back in my hometown where everybody's moved on with their lives because they're not there. They like went to different schools, and I started working a job with my dad where I was like, it was a manual labor job, like filling, bags of flour of food mix, making $8 an hour, working Monday through Friday. So that time of life was figuring out what I wanted to do, and then I started at Marshall in graphic design. So, but it's almost like the music idea shifted of what that was going to look like. I always knew that music had to be a part of my life. I didn't know in that moment that the band would be it for like the next 7 years of my life.
Yeah.
But I was just like, well, that's the opportunity. I've never done that, but like, here I'll go be the lead singer for this band. I'll figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So when do you learn graphic design? Because you mentioned that a couple times. Now, is that something you just learn on your own, like when things like Adobe products and stuff start popping up? Or were you like...
When did I learn?
Yeah.
Yeah. That semester I had off, one of my roommates at WVU, he was about to finish his degree there. And so like that gave me a lot of time to be around him and learn about that. So like I said, I can't say I was like, oh, I was called to do this. Like this is... oh, I'm meant to be this and do that. I was just like, that looks cool. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So when I went to Marshall, like that's what I did. And like, that's what my degree is in, graphic design. So.
I love it. And you make all the stuff for the band, right?
Yeah.
I think we've talked about that before.
Right.
I've already praised you for it before, but I will tell you on a
thank
podcast
you.
when it's being recorded in several ways.
Right.
That is the one thing, and I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but
No,
that's like, like obviously the music is great.
Yeah.
But for me, I think you know me well enough that like I look towards the marketing and the branding.
Right.
That was always something that was always on point with you guys.
That's cool.
That I literally always was like, this is so good.
Right.
And I remember there'd be people that would be like, yeah, you need to like work with the story told. And I'm like, yeah, but no. I'm like, yes, but anything I can offer, it's sort of just icing on the already icing cake.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where I was like, sure, I would like to do it, but it's so well put together already. So all the props across the table to you for like literally just killing that. And I love that you sort of just took it on as a thing that you were just like, I want to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And then you were able to actually use that skill in some sort of like useful way. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people like, I knew people that, go to school for graphic design or whatever it may be. And you said you did as well, but like, sometimes it's very easy to lose that passion for something that you're being taught or because it feels like work.
Yeah.
It feels like a job. Or even if you get a job in that thing, it's very easy to miss that balance and figure out that you're like, oh, wait, I don't know if I actually like this thing or not. But it really is something when it's like, if your interest is there first and then maybe you learn like the practical, like actual way to do it. I feel like that like sort of just solidifies the skill in a little bit. Sure. But again, I think I just love that you found that and just sort of attracted to it. And again, you've put it to good use. Like it's not just like, oh yeah, I guess I could like design sometimes. Like again, everything I've seen of the band for so long has always been like so well put together.
Thank you.
So before we dive further into that, like when you took that semester off, was family and everyone around you like supportive? Was it like, hey, yeah, you need a break, just come hang out for a little bit? Or was there pushback from anybody of like, no, you need to get that degree, you have to go get like the awesome job? Or like, because I know a lot of people, it goes again the kind of one way or the other, where it's like, yeah, it was super chill, or like I had pressures from everywhere.
They were supportive because they love me, but it was like one of those things you didn't even have to talk about it. Now you feel the pressure of like, we're facilitating this is how I see it. We're facilitating your failure, like giving you the opportunity to like redeem yourself. And and that was tough to kind of navigate in my head, because it's like at first, I'm still like 19 years old. I'm like, like putting it on them. Like it's not, but it truly looking back, it's like, it was obviously I'm super happy and thankful that they allowed me to like, you know what I mean? It wasn't out on my own. I could do that. But I definitely see now that it was like time to step up and like figure some stuff out, you know?
So what was that next moment? That when did you in that time frame kind of identify like, all right, time to go ahead and figure myself out now.
Right.
Time for those next steps. Time to go get the graphic design degree, you know, whatever it may be.
Right. It was just, like I said, opportunity, like do it. It's like, okay, part of me feels pressure to like get a degree, so I got to get one. What do I care about right now? Graphic design is the only thing that sparks my mind, you know. Photography sparks my mind, but I'm not going to major in photo because at this point, like my photography endeavors, like I think I'd already like done a few weddings, and so I was like the next year I was booking more weddings and weddings and weddings. So it was like I don't need to get a photography degree to make money there, so I'll do design because I know I will continue to make money through photography. Mm-hmm. So that was my mindset. It was just like I'm gonna commute, not spend the money on living on campus, and I'm just gonna do it. So while that was going on, you know, the band too, and then the band gave me an outlet to do design work and bad videos at first, you know, average photos at first, you know what I mean? And then just like, it was cool because it was, we all kind of grew together, you know, like the music grew, we became better as songwriters, musicians, but it's like on that front, it was all growing too.
So what do you think, like, I want to talk about the opportunity thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you've brought that up a couple times, and, like, I really think there's something to that. What do you feel like makes people not be able to identify opportunities? Does it like, I feel like it goes back to, like, confidence and being able to step up and be like, that's my opportunity. Right. I need to talk to that person. I need to email that person. Or this person offered me this thing. I don't need to sit and say, like, oh, well, I don't know if that's for me or not. It's like, let me try it. Like,
exactly.
What do you think it is that people overlook opportunities?
I think it's a lot of confidence, and people don't want to hear no's. You know, nobody likes being rejected. You know, that's not fun, and a lot of people don't like to fail. And I've been there. You know, it sucks. You know, it's not fun. But again, it's back to that thing. Like it was. You know, I couldn't live with not trying. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think people a lot of times just like don't have like just their eyes open to like what's in front of them. And, you know, we could speak to, you know, opportunities are different based on who we are, you know, where we come from, you know, our privilege and stuff like that. But it's like, I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. You know what I mean? We live in like 2020, regardless of like the shit that's happened this year. Like we have the chance to pretty much do and be whatever we want to be if we like at least give it a shot, you know? And yeah. I think so many people get caught up in the day to day, and you know, I went to McDonald's and got an egg McMuffin for breakfast, and they gave me just a hash brown, you know, like some shit like that. It's like, come on, man, you know what I mean? Or like that person flipped me off in traffic, and it's like, don't let those miserable people make you miserable. You know, just like let that stuff go, and like get the most out of each day that you can. I mean, that's pretty much all you can do.
So you feel like you've always kind of had that in you?
Kind
of just like chill attitude of just like, yeah, whatever happens. And if I see an opportunity, I'm going to take it.
Right. And obviously that required some action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like opportunity a lot of times comes before the action. Sometimes you got to like make it happen yourself. But you know what I mean? It's a lot of it's just like floating there. Don't be afraid to like jump into something. You know, you want to be the singer for this band? I was like, sure.
Right.
You know, if we do it, sucks. I'm not good. You know what I mean? Okay, well, we'll move on. You know?
Yeah.
You know?
So something you mentioned in there, and I'm going to deviate from the timeline here a little bit, but it's funny because I don't want this to become a reoccurring segment on this podcast, but I feel like it's going to, because I feel like it has to be talked about. Yeah. What has this year been like for you?
What's it been like for me?
Yeah. What have you, you know, we're talking about this whole like, yeah, it's, you know, not really what happens, it's your reaction to it and seeing those opportunities. And I mean, you started a podcast and you're doing all these things. Like, basically, how have you been?
Right. Yeah, I've been okay. Good and bad. I'd say that's been a lot of us. I'd like to think, I'm hopeful that the people that have been able to find some positive out of it. And Josh and I lived together here in Columbus, and like Josh was sick with it, like right out of the gate. And so it was like such a weird thing where we were trying to like stay separated. You know, we only have like one bathroom, so it's like every time one of us goes, and for like a month and a half, he was like in bed, and to like avoid him giving it to me, like I was like helping him prep meals and stuff so he didn't have to leave the room. So it was like super weird at first. You know, it was like we didn't accomplish anything during that time. I mean, it is what it is. Like, what can you do?
Yeah.
And but I was able to find a way. Like, I have to do that, but then it's like, okay, I'll work during the day. Then I got, you know, I was running almost every single day. You know, that's therapy, physical exercise. And then it's like I'd come home and chill. So of course, at first it sucked, but then I found a way to like see the positive and opportunity. You know, it's like if I wasn't there, you know, who else would have been there? You know, you just kind of got to like count your blessings. I mean, like as little as there are sometimes, but it's the new normal, you know.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of used to it, and I hate that people are like suffering, but it's like there are people that have a lot worse than me. So I feel like it's not really. I have not wanted to do much complaining because I know that a lot of people have it worse. So
Yeah. Well, that was like even the weird thing for me was I like clearly I wish the circumstances were different. I wish none of the bad stuff existed.
right,
But how I was dealing with it was like it wasn't this like weird culture shock for me to be home all the time because I work from home most of the time.
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm just for sure home a little bit more now.
Right.
And I don't think it did anything to like me mentally until like a few weeks in.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, wait, this means no like meetings in person.
Right.
This means no conversations sitting down
Right.
for a while. And those are things that like very much give me energy. And of course you find ways of like, all right, well, I'm still going to go outside. I'm going to go on jogs or runs or walks or, you know, whatever it may be. But it's like, you know, I think it sort of hit me a little bit later where I was like, oh man, like now I want to do this. Cause like, I'm not a person who like goes out or does that sort of stuff anyway.
Right.
But for me, like, I think the overall, like the ending positive was like, it actually slowed a lot of things down that needed to be slowed down for me.
Right.
To where I was able to really kind of refocus on like, okay, here's what my life looks like without this thing and that thing and that thing. So what else can I work on? And I feel like I've had a similar conversation with a lot of people.
Right.
Where they're like, okay, like that forced slowdown, like, again, not the greatest reason.
Right.
But when you stop so much of the noise around you, it kind of leaves you with what's left of like, okay, well, focus on your health or your mental or physical, or focus on, you know, at home projects or music or art or, you know, whatever it may be. And it's like, I'm always just so fascinated now to hear like what that handful of months was like for everyone.
Right.
Because, you know, I've heard bits and pieces of everything, but I feel like the one commonality is always somebody at least mentions there was some glimmer of positivity that came out of it.
That's good.
Because I focused on my mental health, or I focused on my physical health, or I was able to refocus on this project, or you see people writing albums during lockdown and all this sort of stuff. So it's always interesting to me.
I mean, when else are you going to get I don't know. It's not, opportunity is not the great word, but it's like, you know, just finding, you know, opportunity in the circumstance. When else people that needed to slow down, that needed like basically this punch in the face, you know, it's like, I don't know when else that was ever going to happen. You know, it probably wasn't going to, you know.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the wildest thing. And of course you don't want it to happen.
Right.
But it is that just strange thing of just like, you know, I would see so many people that are like, oh, this is like the worst thing ever. I hate being stuck at home, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what can you do with this opportunity though? You know, and I know that sounds like such a shitty, like privileged thing to say of like, well, what can you do out of a bad situation? But at the default, it's not like, well, start a business, asshole. Like, it's more so just like understand that the way you react to this situation is what you can make of it.
Right. If your mind is there and that's how you're able to see it, like that's exactly what it was, an opportunity. You know, I know some people have like really had a rough time, and obviously like isolation's like not good for anybody. But yeah, it's wild.
So let's jump back in the time machine. We'll get back in the timeline here.
Yeah.
We're through high school. We're through college. You've got all these creative endeavors that you now have at your disposal. You've gained these tools of photography and design and video, and of course it all surrounds around music. Right. So you joined the band.
Mm-hmm.
Was it like an immediate yep, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, I am fully confident in being able to be the frontman of this band? Or was it like, I don't know, I'll just kind of give this a shot and we'll see what happens?
Yeah, it was a work in progress. I mean, at first, there was like a couple years before it felt like we were taking it crazy serious. That's not to say that every single thing we put out or we worked on, we weren't making sure it was the best thing we can do at the time. But I think it took, at least for me, several years to really work into being this person, I guess, or not fitting a mold, but I guess that this is part of who I am. This feels like this is mine. So I can't say from the start, it was just it's always been an incredible outlet to do that. But it's it was never oh, I'm a songwriter now, I'm a singer of the band, check out my band. You know what I mean? It was just I don't know. I feel like I'm not answering your question.
No, I feel like the one thing that I'm noticing with all these answers is you are very much just in that it was a thing and I wanted to try it.
Yeah.
I feel like that is kind of the answer to so much of this, where you're not taking it as this super prideful thing or egotistical thing of I wanted to be a dope graphic designer, I wanted to be the best photographer, the best new vocalist of this band.
Right.
I feel like you really did look at a lot of these things as just this sounds like a fun thing that I want to do.
Right.
And I'm just going to do it.
Right.
So,
but it's weird too, because it's obviously, and not that you weren't saying this at all, but it's in the strangest way possible, that is my mindset. I don't want to be one thing. I don't want to be known for one thing. And that doesn't mean I'm any less proud of the band and all the things we accomplished there, of anything else that I do. It's I'm all in on all of it. If that makes sense,
yes. I don't know if there's someone that you could easier explain that to.
Yeah.
Because I will talk in circles about that for days. Because I am such an avid believer in just do and try everything you want to do and try. Right. And I love the idea of I don't want to be just one thing.
Yeah.
And I really do. I don't know if you've ran into this or not, but sometimes I think that comes back to bite me.
Right.
At least me personally, because I feel people see me make music videos. So they're oh, you're the music video guy.
Yeah.
But then when I'm yeah, but check out this graphic design, or check out these photos, or check out this short film, or this podcast.
Right.
I feel like people are almost what?
I know.
Hold on, what do you mean?
Right.
But you just but you do this thing.
Exactly.
And it's now when I'm talking to people about we're directing films now and making actual narrative pieces, they're what about the music videos?
Right.
It's such a strange thing that I feel do you think that's just I hate to use this word, this isn't a conspiracy podcast, but do you feel like people have just been programmed that way for so long that it's just you do a thing, you get good at that thing,
right,
and that's what you are,
and then everything else is just fun? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's super weird. I mean, I definitely feel like we're getting further away from the traditional trajectory of what that looks like. But I'm right there with you. It's almost all these different things you do. It's okay, people that know me for the band, it's Alex is singing for this band, and that's what he is. That's what he does during the day. He writes music. He wakes up and writes music, and he practices piano at lunch. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And but it's and then my day job, I work for a marketing advertising agency, and then but I also do it. It's almost you're this different person. There's 4 different versions of yourself. Mm-hmm. And it really is such a weird thing. And that's with me recently. I knew when I started the podcast, I wanted to make a better attempt of bringing that all into one. Alex Chaney is these things, not there's lead singer Alex Chaney, and that world doesn't know about the other versions. It's if you know me, I want you to know these are the things that I do. And I know you, it's the same thing with you.
Yes,
so.
1,000,000,000%. And I feel it's it's such a rough thing to navigate for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, even though like I'm so sure, or you're so sure of like, yeah, this is who we are. These are all the things. These are all the different branches off of our main tree. I still feel like it's this like constant battle of just like, well, no, I do this, but I do that, but I do these things, but and it's, but I think there's just something to embracing those. And I feel like there's a lot of people who just don't, I feel like we keep coming back to like the opportunity thing or opening your eyes or whatever to what it is. But I just feel like a lot of people don't do that. And I'm not magical for doing that. And you're not magical for doing that. We're not these higher beings.
No.
But it is just, it's always strange to me because I'm always that person who anybody mentioned, let's say they have this job as this thing and they'll mention like, oh yeah, it'd be really fun if I started my own baking Instagram and maybe made my own like baking, business or something.
Right.
I'm immediately like, you can do that.
Yeah.
Like, let's figure it out. What do you want to do? I'm not saying you got to be an entrepreneur, but I'm saying you can figure out at least a default level of doing that.
Yeah.
But I always feel like I'm the crazy person in the room for saying that because I feel like a lot of people don't, again, they just don't believe that.
Right. They're like, nah, it's not realistic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it really does like circle back a lot to like people just that lack of confidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by no means, again, I'm not saying I'm the most confident person in the world.
Right.
There's a lot of opportunities that I miss because I'm not like sure of like, I should do that thing.
Right.
Like, yes, I can take that. That opportunity is there waiting for me.
Yeah.
And it is hard to navigate. But again, it is just so strange to me when it's just like people don't let themselves just like almost, this might be a silly word to use to describe it, but it's like they don't let themselves just like flourish in what they could really be.
Right.
You can be this, you can be that, you can be 7 different things at once.
Right.
And I love something that you said when you were describing that earlier is you said, I'm all in on all things. I wish that so many more people realize that you can be all in on all things.
For sure.
Because again, the whole like what we've been kind of programmed to believe is like you choose a thing and you're 100% in that thing.
Right.
Rather than seeing that you can give 100% to different things at different times.
Right.
It's not just like we have this magical like meter of energy that is just like, well, I don't know, you chose to do some photography today and you tried really hard on that. So, you got 2% left, dog. You're like, what are you going to do with that last 2%?
Right.
You can't really do 5 push-ups. I don't know.
Right.
It's like, I can give, in my entire day, I can do a photo shoot and give 100% to that.
Yeah.
Then I can end the night with a podcast and give 100% to that.
Right.
And then if I can't sleep and I want to work on a design project, I'll give 100% to that design project too. And I think people just don't allow themselves to find that freedom.
Right.
And be and really embrace being all in on all things. And I know I'm just talking in circles and I'm saying the exact same thing, but it is just something that I really wish a lot of people would notice.
Yeah, I agree. And like even in like our world and stuff like that, I mean, you hear like a bunch of success stories of people saying like, I made it because I didn't have a plan B. And it's like I can kind of see it, but it's like if I don't make it because I didn't have a plan B, it's like that doesn't matter. Like these are the things I want to do. I'm not doing them. I'm not just like grabbing at a bunch of different things like, God, I hope one of these sticks. It's like, no, I care about all these things. Like I'm doing them all without an expectation like this is going to be without the expectation that it's going to like be the greatest thing in the world and the millions and millions of people are going to see it. It's like, I love doing it. If people love it, that's awesome. Like,
yes.
Like it's not, if plan A for me is doing all of these things, plan B is not doing them.
That 100%. And that's like, I feel like a question that I've chatted with a bunch of people about is when people are like, well, what's your ultimate like life goal, right? Expecting it to be like a career choice.
Right.
And my answer to that, it could be lame, but it's like, I feel like every time I talk to people about that, my answer is always freedom. And I don't mean like the America rah-rah freedom.
Right.
I mean the freedom and ability to do anything that I want. So for me, exactly like kind of going off of what you just said, like it's not about like, if What You Don't Hear blows up and becomes the biggest podcast in the world.
Yeah.
All right, great. there's one thing, cool, that's dope. A lot more people care about it now.
Right.
And now I'm going to go and work on this thing some more and do this thing some more while I still do this. And it's not like you said, I'm not just waiting on that one thing to accomplish the dreams. It's like my goal is, when I'm 50, whatever, however many years old, I just want the freedom to, if I want to go shoot a short film, I can shoot a film. If I want to keep podcasting, I can podcast. If I want to start another podcast, I can start another podcast. Like if I want to go back and manage bands or something, I can do that. Like
exactly.
That to me is the ultimate goal, where it's not like I don't have to be locked into one thing of this thing got big and it made me money and now I'm famous or rich or whatever. It's like, I just want more. It's at this point, it's the word of the day. I just want the opportunity.
Yeah.
I want the opportunity and the freedom to do anything that I feel like doing. If I want to wake up at noon one day and that's when I start my day, I can do it.
That's right.
If I want to set a meeting for 8 a.m. and have that meeting run 6 hours long, I can do it.
It's a hell of a meeting.
That's the thing.
But I'm gonna do it.
I've had those meetings. That's the wild part.
Yeah.
Is I love talking a little bit too much, and I have definitely had a couple 6-hour meetings, like 100%. In fact,
6-hour meeting,
dude. So Josh Emmerich and I, you've never met Josh, right?
I don't think so, but
you never met my Josh,
right?
I met your Josh,
right?
The very first time that he and I sat down, because at that point in time, I had a clothing line because that was the trendy thing to do, and I was like, I want to do that too.
Hell yeah.
But he wanted to shoot photos and videos for my clothing line. We did that, so we had known each other, but it was kind of like this. It was like, well, let's sit down and let's really talk. So we talked about goals and dreams and all that sort of stuff. Literally, we sat in a Wendy's for 6 hours. And
well, at least you're at a Wendy's though.
Yes, so we ate twice.
I was going to say, did you eat twice? Yeah.
You eat lunch and then you eat dinner.
Right.
I did the same thing with my friend Josiah, who is a video director out of New York. First time I met him, we sat in a Qdoba, literally got lunch, and then had dinner there that night because we just sat and talked. And I don't know why I'm even telling those stories. It's nothing special, but it's 6-hour meetings. Yeah. It's totally happened. But
you've made it a little better. I'm thinking of a big conference room meeting.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
Was there lunch breaks?
Yeah,
pressure if I have to use the bathroom. You know what I mean?
No, those sort
I
of
feel
meetings,
that
totally. Unless I'm the head of those meetings, then I'm just gonna be like, everybody can do whatever you want. Just listen to the main thing we need to talk about. But that's always kind of the end goal. Is I don't have to be world famous podcaster. If 50 people listen to this podcast and that's all it ever goes to, but those 50 people or one of those 50 people gain something from these conversations, that's a win.
Right.
Of course, at a default answer, would you want anything you do to work really well?
Of course.
Of course. That goes without saying.
Right.
But you have to, and this is a strength that I think you've for sure found, and not that I'm trying to harp on it, but it's that strength and understanding of my default level of happy is this, and it's getting to do this thing. Right. And as long as I get this out of it, I can write music, I can take a photo, I can design, I can help this person, I can, write this, I can whatever.
Right.
As long as you get that default level of happiness out of it, that's where the fulfillment should come from. Now, when I say that, I sound just like cool guy on the podcast who's acting like nothing is ever wrong in his own life.
Right.
I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
But I can identify it.
Right.
And I know that that's something I need to work on every day is, all right, I need to be okay with this amount of whatever this is. You know what I mean? I need to again, hey, cool. I'm doing video for the podcast now. Oh, well, how many people are really going to watch the video version? I don't know.
We'll see.
But I'm doing it.
Yeah.
We'll see. You know what I mean? It could take 5 more years of doing this before anybody sees you wave. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's just that's just a part of it is what matters more, the stress or work that goes into setting up the cameras for it, or the fact that you and I got to sat down and have a conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If you focus on this is what mattered. This is what mattered, and people listening, it's the gear, the views, if it comes, great. If not, who cares?
Yes. Yes.
And obviously there has to be a point where you evaluate time investment to whatever, but people are out there. I found there's a girl I went to high school with. I want to get her on the podcast, but she is a writer, and She's amazing. I did not even know this about her. I haven't talked to her in years. She's been posting a new blog consistently every week for 5 years. And out of all those posts, there's been 3 comments.
Wow.
I counted.
Incredible.
Because I cared.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know that statistic. I don't know. It's just like, man, she loves to write. And it's like, that was so cool to me. Me already being in a position where the positive feedback and stuff, I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it and it wasn't important to me, because I want people to if it matters to them, that's so cool to me.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, if you don't love what you do, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's pointless.
And I think a lot of people get caught up in that idea where they love the idea of doing something more than do they actually love to do it.
Right.
So it's like for a while, I've been doing 2 podcasts, and it's like somebody could be like, why are you doing 2 podcasts? Because they fulfill me in different ways. You know what I mean?
Why not?
Why? Exactly. And I know that that's such the cliche answer, but it really is. It's like, well, why not? If I have the ability to do it or the want or drive to do it, why not?
Right.
Why can't I be all in on all things?
Agree.
So before I keep stealing your one-liners, let's hop back into.
You can have it.
Let's hop back into the timeline. So you've joined the band.
Join the band.
When does it become we're giving this a real go?
Yeah. Probably I think our first full-length record, Keep Watch, came out March of 2016. I think that was the first real moment where we were like, holy shit, maybe we could really do this, do something with this. It was such a weird thing to invest the time and energy into writing 10 songs, and I feel like we were all so new to so many aspects of it. It really was this just beautiful combination of just sure will of just effort. It was just we're gonna do that absolutely everything we can to just get this and bring this to life. And I remember we were at a Buffalo Wild Wings in Cross Lanes, West Virginia. I feel like that was when the album dropped, and just seeing the feedback at the time, our presence on the internet was nothing. So it was just I don't know, it was just this huge moment of wow, we could this actually is something. This is actually real. This isn't, my mom likes it. Thanks, Mom. I really appreciate that, because some parents are just nah. But when you have feedback from other people, it kind of a lot of times puts it into perspective, the opportunity, I guess, of impact there. That was the first real moment, I think, that first full-length record.
Yeah.
So
what do you guys take out of that moment? Is it okay, we're gonna kick it into gear with all that? Because I feel like I came about you guys around probably, I think, is it second full length?
Mm-hmm. Good Looks.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's really when I think I had definitely known about you guys, because forever ago I did the whole Unsigned Ohio thing, which I don't know if you remember or not, but
that sounds right.
Just the random online promotion thing where any band that was near Ohio, I was like, hey, check them out. Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So I had known about you guys from that, but I feel like when it really caught my attention was Good Looks.
Right.
And again, not to go back and say this exact same thing, but the marketing was so on point.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is that when you really dove into hey, I'm really understanding this whole branding thing now?
Right. Yeah, I think that was definitely the moment for it was okay, we're really gonna try to make this happen. The amount of time. Yeah, just piecing together that whole marketing strategy, the visuals and all that. Again, you don't really understand why you're making it, what it's gonna do, what it's all gonna feel like. But looking back now, it's man, that headspace. It's I almost crave that headspace, where I was then. Mm-hmm. And when you're in the moment, you don't have time to look up. But yeah, that the moment with that record, I think, was kind of the moment for us, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that's such a fascinating thing that I for sure have been I feel waiting to hear from you for so long. And I mean, we talked about it in that original meeting we had, but you guys were such a good example of what, when I was actively working with a bunch of bands, you guys were like the example of like, this is a good band. And not just in the sense of like the music's cool,
Right.
but the package, everything about it, the way you are presenting yourself was just on point. And not to make this a whole like music industry, like marketing talk.
No, I get what you're saying.
I would like, what was your mindset? I know you said you didn't dive too deep into it in the moment, but maybe even looking back, like, because to me, if there's any musician listening to this podcast right now, it's like, this is the time where I really want you to like open the floodgates of your brain and let it go of marketing and branding a band, because I feel like you guys were such a good example of that. And it doesn't have to be, yeah, dude, that one ad I designed, we got 1 million likes on it. It worked. That's not the metric in which determines like, oh yeah, it worked.
Right.
It's just looking at it. And the fact that I'm sitting here, years later on this podcast, like giving it so much praise because it was cool. But that's a thing that so many musicians never, ever think about.
Right.
And it's just fascinating to me that you guys just did it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people in bands just want to be rock stars. Like that's all they want to do. And we have always struggled fitting in anywhere. We, pop punk scene, we were a little too pop, indie pop, alt pop, like we were a little too punk, you know what I mean? And I think for a long time we treated it as a problem. Like it was like, man, I don't know where we're at. And then eventually we like dealt with other bands that had story in it, those story untold, whatever. I think we've just had this like, we'll figure it out and do it ourselves mentality. And, obviously there's been a lot of opportunity there with me being able to do the design and stuff like that. But you understand it's hard to bring people onto your team that share vision, that share things like that. We weren't signed, we'd had some like conversations with management and stuff like that. And it's like all about bringing people onto our team. Like, do they share the vision? And just like a lot of it just never felt like it was working out. So we've always had that mindset. We'll do it ourselves. We'll be true to ourselves. And we'll figure it out. I guess as far as like insight into like, Josh and I are a lot of the brain behind all that. And it's always so weird. The majority of the songs start with Josh writing a riff, and then we kind of build a song, and then I like write on top of it. But like those themes, like those ideas of songs like Feel Bad, it's like, well, that doesn't come to life until you like write the lyric Feel Bad, And then that brings into the campaign of like, what do you want to do and not feel bad about it? And another aspect of it is the cover art girl. It's like, well, I found out about that illustrator, Judith Vandenhoek, and she lives in the UK. It's like, I found out about her, and it's like, oh, I think her work is sick. And I have this idea that this album's like about this like fictional girl that's just like wrapped up in everything in relationships, blah, 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 blah. And like, that's, you know what I mean? But it's always been that mindset of like, it's got to happen, You're really fortunate to like have people in your life that can help you with the things that you're like unable to do yourself. But like, it's always been for us at the end of the day, like it's got to happen. We want it to be the best thing in the world. I don't want to write an amazing record that has terrible artwork. Like, I don't want to write an amazing record that like our promos don't fit what we're trying to be, us, whatever. Like every single aspect of it matters. And I think maybe that's like the point you're trying to get at is like everybody wants to be rock stars, but like making it in this industry like isn't just about writing good music. I mean, you know what I mean? Some of the most successful, popular artists in the world aren't the best singers. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a business, it's a culture. I don't know, but as long as you stay true to yourself, as cliche as that is, it's like, do what you want. We weren't trying to like, if we tried to fit a mold, eventually I think we would have gotten to the point where we would have been unhappy because we were like now people and giving off this thing that's not us. It's like, if we can be ourselves and that brings attention, whatever, like that's the perfect scenario,
Yeah. So as I continue to pat you on your back for all this band stuff that you've done, I want to ask you this question, and I want your honest answer.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you guys were and it's going to sound so cheesy when I say it, but do you feel like you were ahead of your time? Do you feel like you were sooner, like, than when maybe like everyone then started taking branding into consideration? And I feel like it was like you were a couple years ahead of that. Not that it's never mattered until just recently, but in the way that you guys did it, of just like, yeah, we need just the full package to look great. Do you feel like you were earlier on that, or do you think you just understood, well, here's the gap between what all the quote unquote big bands do,
right,
and why can't we do that too?
Right. It's funny now. I think we felt like that album came at a time where we actually felt like it was late in the like the journey and time frame of our band, like almost like it was kind of like I don't know what I'm saying, when really that was just like the first punch to like what we're doing. If we were early, we've always like set out, and I'll mention the band Coin because like I'm friends with like some of those guys, and like lead singers from Huntington, West Virginia, and
which is so wild when I
know
that.
Like
I was like, huh?
Right, like mutual friends to church and stuff like that. His dad's like the pastor at a church down there, but like they're a good example of like, okay, here's a band that's like doing it right, I guess. It's like, we're not going to copy them, but like that's the standard. Like I don't want the standard to be where we're at right now. The standard always has to be like somebody that's like doing it right. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like how we've always seen it. It's like, it's got to be that good. It has to be that good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just, you know what I mean? You're just
it's the drive and the purpose.
Yeah.
And I know that was a really like hot seat question for me to throw at you.
No,
of like,
no.
Hey, dude, tell me how good your
that.
band was. Like, you know, I'm sure it feels weird, but like, I feel like that's just, it's something that a lot of people need to hear and understand, of just like, you need to put purpose to your music. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something you were sort of explaining earlier. It's just like a lot of bands are just like, I want to be a band. Well, you need to have clarity on like what does that mean to you?
Right.
What does that mean? Is that band that I just want to have fun no matter what it takes, or I just want to play the local bar every once in a while, or
expectation.
I want to tour. I want the numbers. I want the streams. I want the listens. I want the attention. You know, like it's okay. Whatever your attention, your intentions are, just determine that. And it's so funny that like this is actually like the first conversation that I feel like I've had about music industry stuff since I stopped caring about the music industry. And obviously like I still do the like Bloom division work, and I still do like the graphic design and the content campaigns, but I'm so much less like consumed by it now. Right. That it's just, I feel like I'm almost kind of like looking back now where I'm just like, you either just like want to do it or you don't. Right. Because I feel like for so long I really tried to baby bands a lot. Where I was just like, listen, if you just do this and here, I'll make you all these things. But what I noticed, the point that I'm making is that like a lot of the times I was projecting what I wanted that band to do onto them. I wasn't working into what they wanted. Yeah. I wasn't having, now if I were to sit down and let's say now, instead of going into the storytelling realm of making movies, I was actually going back into, I want to be an artist manager. Yeah. So if I were to do that now, the first thing I would do when I sit down with a band isn't like, what's the cool things we can do? It would be, what do you want out of your band? Right. Because before we go any further, we need to know where everyone's levels are, where everyone's intentions are, what everyone's expectations are. Because that was something that I would notice with so many bands is, again, that I feel like you guys at least had the clarity or understanding on of like, well, we do want to make a go of this. So we are going to market ourselves similar to how these bigger bands that we are seeing grow and do these cool things. Yeah. We can identify and understand that. So how can we make that work for ourselves? That clarity is something that so many artists just miss. Right. And it's okay. I'm not saying everybody has to want to run their band as a business unless you want it to be a business. Yeah. Then you need to learn some aspect, or like you were talking about, build a team. You need to build a team of like, all right, if you can identify, I really want good graphic design so bad. All of our ads and our content is just bad. Seek someone out who
Right.
can give you what you want.
Right.
But then when you find that person and they cost X amount, you can't sit and be like, "Whoa, how come you cost that amount?" It's
Right.
because they have the thing that you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think I'm just talking again in so many different branches, but like the main point being that like having that understanding of what you want out of your any sort of project is a thing that so many musicians just miss.
Right.
It's like they don't just sit down and have that conversation with themselves, with their fellow members, whatever it is, of like, hey, what do you want out of this?
Yeah.
Here's what I want out of this. And hey, if we have to pay, $500 for a promo session, is that cool with you guys? If we have to pay $5,000 for a really good music video, is that okay with you guys? What is it that we're wanting
Right.
out of this band? And I feel like you guys, again, you have that default level of like, we know what we're going for.
Yeah.
We know what we want. We know what we're trying to pursue.
Right.
So hopefully when you're working proactively in that sense, there's a lot less things you have to in the moment react to in a panic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So another thing that I've always wondered about you guys is, was there ever those moments where it was almost that breakthrough moment? Was there ever anything that popped up that it was like, oh, if we sign this deal, this could be really cool. Oh man, if this manager pops up, this could be really cool. Was there anything like that? Or was it just like a constant kind of just a steady growth of like, because I feel like so many times I talk to musicians, there's a lot of them that have that like,
Right.
dude, there was this one thing that if we just did or tried or like, oh, it fell through our hands. So I guess, was there any of those, as we're going through the peaks and valleys, like what were the valleys like in the band growing through that?
Right. I mean, there's always been this like understanding. I mean, we have had that conversation, like as far as expectations, like that's what I was going to mention too. Like if a band is all in, but they, like you said, like if they can't, like they don't have the chance to take the photos themselves, but it's like, okay, we are all in. We don't know how to do this. So like, help us do this. Like, anyway, yeah, talking about being early with that record in 2017, I wish we would have seen then how we feel now on the opportunity to be independent artists. Even in 3 years, it's like, unless it's like Sony or Universal or Columbia Records, it's like bands and artists are operating independently. And I think that we were, I wish we had just like, and of course you can't change the past, but it's like what we did, like we should be super proud of. And it's like, I wish we had just like, as soon as we finish that record, like jump into another one. You know what I mean? It's
dude,
instead of waiting on that thing to happen,
Isn't that crazy though? Like
so
how
weird.
quickly that shifted? Because literally, if we were having this conversation in 2017, I'd be like, yeah, get yourself ready to pitch to management,
Exactly.
pitch to a label and figure
Right.
it all out. Now, if anyone were to ask me, I'd be like, don't even bat an eye.
No.
Who cares?
Right.
Who cares?
Right.
Do it on your own.
Exactly.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I mean, we've had some, like, I think one for us was like, we won the Ernie Ball, Battle of the Bands thing. We got to play main stage at Warped Tour in 2016. Obviously that was a totally like surreal moment, but of course we're like, oh my God, Newfound Glory is playing like right before us, and then after us I think was Issues or something like that. It's like all those people are going to be like right there. They're all going to like come buy our merch and listen to us on Spotify, and we're going to go from 12,000 monthly listeners to 100 million. You know what I mean? You have those moments. Like, but one thing I will say is like, it's hard to believe it's been like, it's 5 years that we've really been trying, 7 years total, but it's like we've had a lot of peaks and valleys in the band. We stopped A Story Told for a minute to pursue another project Josh and I did with Kids Amen, and it's like,
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's like we were burnt out a little bit on A Story Told. We had just done our third like major-ish tour, I guess. It was, bands our size. I mean, whatever, like it's a weird thing. It's crazy. Say you have like 50, we have 50,000, 60,000 Spotify monthly listeners, but like, so we pay attention to the cities where people are listening to the music, and that's how we like map a touring route. But it's like, okay, you have 150 monthly listeners in St. Louis, Missouri, but you go play St. Louis, Missouri on a Tuesday, and there's 3 people that are there for you. You know what I mean? And we've always been fine with managing that expectation. We've never been a touring first band. Like we've been like internet, people listen to our music type band first. But anyway, we were burnt out, I think, a little bit, and I think we just needed to shift a creative outlet. So it was like, we'll start this other thing. We don't know what's going on with the story told. So we did that, and then timing just felt right to like come back. You know what I mean? Josh and I are very different in that mindset of like, I'm like, we needed to do that to get back to here. And like we've been talking with this conversation is like, sometimes you can like put things down and then pick them back up and it's like, okay. Yeah, peaks and valleys. I try not to think too much about them, you know?
Yeah, I love
life
it.
sucks sometimes and life's great at other times. And I don't know, you don't want it to be peaks all the time. Like, you don't appreciate the peaks without the valleys.
Totally.
Ooh.
Boom. There's that right there. That's the social content. That's the clip that goes out. Yeah. There it is. Brand new episode.
But it's true. I mean,
no, it is.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because this podcast is like filled with those sort of things. You know what I mean? And I feel like every time that I personally say any of those things, I always preface it with like, this is really cheesy. This is really cliche, but it's like, those things are cliche and they're said so much because they're true.
Right. Exactly.
And why do we have to preface it with like, it's silly, but you should believe in yourself? Like, I think it's like there's just enough t-shirts at Walmart that say believe in yourself.
The t-shirts are the reason that this is a problem.
Yeah. People are just like, oh my God.
Right. Because truly I think people really like self-help. I've really got a self-help kick here recently. Just, I don't know, be your best self. You know what I mean? It's like people like that shit. Like,
well, see, it's so funny that even like the way we have to say it, you just said it. You're like, I know, be yourself. I know. It's like why
doing it
right? Like why is that how we have to like adjust ourselves into being like, oh yeah, I don't know. Like I guess I kind of like care about myself. Like right. But the more again, that's why earlier I was like, I love that you started the podcast. Yeah. Because it's like the more places that are sharing these cheesy cliche things that, that it's like I want these things to be said by people, like more people than like influencers with 1 million followers.
Right.
Because I think it's easy to write those people off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's easy to sit and be like, oh, of course, Gary V is going to tell me to wake up tomorrow and chase my dreams.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's easy for him to say. He's like a millionaire. He's got 1 million followers. Who cares? It's like, okay, well, listen to like whatever other people,
if you don't like Gary Vee, then move on, Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, listen to Ross and Alex, 2 nobodies who are just like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, it's cool to believe in yourself sometimes. It's like, I want people to realize that that's okay to think.
Right.
And again, it's okay to be all in on a lot of things. It's okay to try whatever you want. It's okay to, exactly what you said with, you guys kind of put a story told down a little bit and then tried something else. But then you came back to it and you were like, let's just keep going with this.
Right.
Like, let's just
felt right to pick it back
again.
up.
Yeah. Like, we want to write this type of music, so we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Like, it's okay to just try those things and to do them. So is Kids Amen just sort of like a thing that you were like, we tried it for a bit, I don't know? Or is it like, hey, we've got 2 projects and whenever we feel like making a song for one of them, we're doing it?
I feel like it's a mix of both. Yeah. It was like we put out 3 songs. We were writing, under Kids Amen, we put out 3 singles. Then we were working on a record, and we were writing the songs. It was just like, man, these feel like a story told songs. Like, it really feels like we're having, now it feels like those, I feel like those first 3 songs, there was like a little bit of like, it felt a little natural. We had some other people that were like helping us as well. Like this band was like potentially going to have people that aren't involved in a story told, involved in, and that, that's not how it went. So now it felt like we were trying too hard to write songs that didn't sound like a story told. So we started writing the record and we were like, man, yeah, these are story told songs. Maybe it's time to like pick it back up. And so as far as like the future of Kids Amen, it's basically Josh and I. It's like if we write a song that feels like Kids Amen, we'll release it under Kids Amen. Like that's what it is.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that, and that's like I feel like that's what the modern or future of like being a musician is turning into.
Yeah,
is just like, you just make what you want to make.
Right.
And you put it out in the way you want to put it out. And of course, you got to, take it whatever level of serious that you need to,
Right.
make the stuff look cool, make it look nice, make it look presentable
Right.
in whatever way that is to you.
Yeah.
But just make stuff.
Exactly.
Just make stuff.
Right.
And I loved like seeing like that transition, because again, from the outside, I was like, oh, okay, cool. This new band's cool. Like, I like this music. And okay, they put it in. Of course, as an outsider, I'm like, oh, they put it into Story Told. Like,
Yeah.
all right, cool, whatever. And then all of a sudden it pops back up of just like, hey, yeah, we're actually going to release some more of these songs. And something else I appreciate you guys did, and I keep just bringing these up as examples of just like, if there's musicians listening, I feel like these are just good examples for people to hear, is I like that you guys picked up exactly where you left off.
Yeah.
And you were also transparent about the reasoning behind it.
Right.
I'm pretty sure when you guys put out the new Story Told songs, you said we were writing songs for Kids Amen.
That's exactly what we said.
That felt like this band.
Right.
So we realized it was time to return to this band.
Right.
And again, I just feel like that's packaged so nicely of like, again, you're being authentic. So I know it's weird for me to be like, it's marketed well, bro. But
No, yeah.
it's just like, you're still like, you come back with this band, the designs are still great, the visuals are still rad, you're still like, the music is still dope, but you're still being authentic with it.
Right.
It's just like, hey, we did leave for a little while. Now it's back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully you like it. Check it out, I suppose. Like, you know what I mean? So would you say now, like, that's where you're at with music is, of course, you're going to have your default, you've got your bar set of like the effort that you're giving into things. It's going to look good. It's going to sound good. It's going to be marketed well, whatever. Is it like, if we get like a big label offer, then like, sure, time to go? Or is it just like, until then, we're just gonna have fun with it. We're just gonna make music, and we're gonna continue being ourselves and building our own lives, and not so strongly identify with this band?
Yeah. It's for me, like, I'm not thinking about anybody knocking. Like, I'm really not. For so long we've like done it ourselves and just figured it all out, and write music, build campaigns, release it, promote it, do it all over again. And it's like, if somebody comes knocking, hey, what's up? Like, what do you, like, you know what I mean? Not like, what do you want? But it's like, hey, what's up? Like, I'll hear you out, whatever this is. Like, that fits, cool. If not, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. Like,
Right.
I feel like that's the mindset. Like, I think young musicians, like young bands, like, need to get in their mind, like we were talking about, the opportunity is much more now to be independent and make money and make a business from this without the help of a label. And I'm like so interested in seeing what this looks like 10 years from now. I don't think labels are going anywhere. I mean, I think like some of the shitty ones and like some things are kind of getting filtered out, and like a lot of bad contracts are coming to life. I mean, you know what I'm saying, but it's like, I feel like that needs to be, don't wait on somebody to like take you there. Like, if that comes, like, great, listen to it, think about it, whatever. But it's like, it's not, it might not show up at your doorstep, and otherwise you were just sitting there waiting for it. Like,
Yeah, 100%. And that, I mean, you kind of answered my next question, because the next thing I was going to say is like, I want you to, imagine that some, new musician, or even musician who's made music for a while is sitting here listening to this, and they're like, I don't really know what I should do. I feel like you kind of just answered of just like, just do it.
right.
Just make the music.
That's exactly right.
Don't get caught up on like, well, how many views is it going to get? How many listens is it going to get? How many label offers is it going to get? It's like, you need to just make the music. Or if it's not music, you need to just make whatever it is you're wanting to make.
Right.
So now I'm going to ask you, what else do you want to make? Or what more do you want to make Alex Chaney into?
The $1 million question. Is this like the indirect, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
You know what? It might be.
Oh.
This is actually the whatever answer you give, something will actually like happen in this room.
Oh, wow.
So there's, like,
I'm excited.
If you're like, I want $1 million, like $5 will float down from the
So I want $5. Yeah.
2 cents falls from the ceiling.
Right. Yeah, man. I feel like I'm giving a similar answer, but I really do have this take things as they come mentality, which that makes me sound like I literally am nowhere in life because just like having the expectation things that come to you. But I trust myself enough that like I work really hard. Like what makes me happy is putting effort in and like seeing a result. And like I've been thinking about this recently was like I feel like I constantly have my head down and I have a handful of things that matter. It's that I care about what I'm doing, I feel fulfilled by it, and I'm not miserable. Like as long as I can like create things and do that, I don't know what that's going to look like, but if some of those things aren't happening, then I'll look up and reevaluate. Like I know that might be kind of like a weird idea to kind of present it as, but I don't know what that looks like. Like we're going to keep making music and making art, but I don't know what it looks like, man.
Yeah. I think that's a perfectly fine answer.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I definitely wasn't even looking for the like, well, in 5 years I'll be doing this. I love that it's I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
Because still at a base level, again, you've got your bar set of like this is how I want to do things.
Yeah.
This is the person in general that I want to be.
Right.
If that turns into 5 years from now, you've got 3 different podcasts that talk about 3 different things. You know what I mean? It's like, it's totally possible and it can happen. And and again, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that idea. And I wish I wish it was an idea that more people would accept of just like, have a plan, know what you want to do, have a structure,
Right.
but figure out how that works in your favor.
Right.
Figure out how to take advantage of those opportunities that might be showing themselves to you. And again, it's like half the time I say this stuff out loud to try and remind myself of it.
Oh yeah. It's so easy to forget. But for me where I'm sitting right now, it's like at this point I trust I trust who I am. I trust the people that I have in my life right now. And if I actually take the time to look back on the things that I've accomplished, like I'm so proud. Like I'm so proud of like myself, like the human I've become, I guess. And it's like, man, I didn't really like envision any of that. Like I didn't think everything that I'm doing now, like I couldn't have written that down. You know what I'm saying? It's like, wow, like I really just trusted those core things that matter. It's like I can't wait to see like just trusting that and working hard and trusting the people in my life and my values. You know what I mean? Like I'm excited to see like what that looks like in the next 10 years. You know what I mean?
100%. So as we start to wind down here, is there anything you feel like we didn't talk about? Anything that you're like, oh, I need to get this off my chest. Oh, we didn't talk about the time that I rolled a car 97 times when I was 16. We missing anything?
Obviously you can cut this up.
You're like, obviously you can cut this up. I'm perfect.
yeah. Forget everything I just said. I'm a baller. No. No, I'm trying to think. Was there anything you wish I had talked on more?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's I love that your story was just this like I had a feeling of and I had a support system of like I just wanted to try and create things.
Yeah.
And luckily I had that safety net of yes, I can. And it's like it's actually fascinating to me. Like I felt like we got through your like childhood so quickly because it was just like, man, I wanted to do things and I did them. You know what I mean? It's like, and not that like I'm Mr. Perfect, I did them, but just like, I don't know, I just kept trying things.
Right.
You know, and I just kept trying things until I joined a band, and then I just kept trying things with that band, and now I have a podcast.
Yeah. I definitely I still struggle with like we talked about being like these different people like in different places, and I think it's always going to be tough like when we choose to like live the life and be like the people that we are where we like want to do so many different things. I think it's like it's going to be a struggle forever, but I don't know. I think that's all I have.
Well, that was I like that you brought that up because that was one of the last couple of things I wanted to ask you. Yeah. It's like, I know the shoes that I'm in. I know the things that I'm trying to do and how I battle with that daily.
Yeah.
Of like we were talking about pre-pod.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, man. I batch all the podcasts together and I record them all within the same kind of time frame and then release them after, because I know that there's going to be sometimes a month where I do not have it in me to have a conversation with anybody. So I guess my question for you,
and I agree with you, and I
yeah,
I don't know about you, but it's like I'm hard on myself when I feel like I'm not in a headspace to like do those things. And I hate that because you have to like give yourself some grace, but yeah, sorry.
No, that I mean that's I think you're leaning into like the question I was going to ask is like how do you balance that? How do you balance those, you know, like, man, I have those like really off days where as much as like this whole story has been like, yeah, when I feel like doing something, I just do it. What about the times when you don't feel like doing anything?
Yeah. Yeah, the times I feel like I don't want to do anything, I can't do anything. Like I said, I feel like I'm really hard on. I feel like I tell myself that I have to. Obviously, you have moments where like you literally cannot go on. Like, but I feel like I'm constantly pushing myself to that. So long term, like I don't want to live like that forever. You know, I don't want to give up on any of the things in my life that I'm pursuing, like I'm investing time in, but I think eventually like you have to take care of yourself. And I don't even mean that by like time management. Like mental, physical, sleep. Like I'm still the person, like I go to bed at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
If I fall asleep before midnight, I'm sick.
Dude, literally same.
Yeah, I'm sick.
I've tried to go to bed at like 10 or 11. I literally will sleep for 20 minutes and I'll wake back up.
Yeah, it's a joke. It's literally a joke.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where I'm struggling, is letting the idea creep in that you're tired. You've given a lot of time, like move on with your life. Not that I feel like any of those things are like throwing in my face, like you suck, this is a failure, why are you wasting your time? But it's impossible for those thoughts not to creep in. And where you and I like do so many different things, it's always like the jack of all trades, master of none. It's like, damn, you suck at everything. You do all these things, but you're not good at any of them. You know, those thoughts always come in. So I'm always kind of like pushing myself to the brink, because part of me is just kind of like scared to sit with that thought, I guess. But
right.
Like, yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's super difficult. And and that's why I wanted to ask that, because I know I can tell through this conversation, like we are insanely similar.
Right.
And I know that if I sit and I only sent an email for that day, like there is half of me that's like, that's a win. Let yourself relax. But there's another half of me that's like, we could have did so many more things. Right. Like, how dare you go to sleep right now? How dare you just do that? Like, what are you doing? And you said a form of this earlier of like, you know, you don't want it to last forever. And I feel like that's such an interesting thing to say, but I agree with it, is that like, I can say the same thing, that the way that I am now, it's like I do and don't want it to last forever. Yeah. I do in the sense of like the freedom that we talked about earlier, of like, I want my life to forever be set up where if I want to sit down with Alex at, 8:30 p.m. on a Wednesday and be doing an hour and a half long podcast, I can schedule that if I want. Really? I don't have to adjust around a bunch of things. Now, of course, when I'm, families and all that sort of stuff pop up, but there's always going to be those new variables, but it's like, I always want that freedom and the ability to do those things. Yeah. But at the same time, it's finding that balance of like, you need to just relax and slow down sometimes. Yeah. And I feel like I go in and out of figuring that out. Yeah. I feel like sometimes
it's hard
I'm like,
to navigate.
I'm like, dude, I just sat all day and I watched Netflix. That's so sick.
Right. But it's impossible not to feel guilty.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. And it's like, it's the ultimate like blessing and curse sort of thing. Because it's like, anybody can tell me a business idea that they have, and I will immediately be like, here is how we do it. Let's go. Here's a branding package. Right. But at the same, but also for me, I'm like, this is a burden because I would love to just not think of things sometimes. Yeah. And I know that's such a silly thing to say, but I feel like you can relate. And again, that's why I asked that question of like, how do you balance it? And how do you carry yourself through those days where you're like, I should have done so much, but I did so little.
Right.
And damn it, now I feel this way.
Right.
And it's not just you and I that feel that way. And you don't, I'm not trying to invalidate anybody who feels that way who does only one thing. You don't have to sit and be this, I have so many business ideas, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can be tired from anything. You can be beat down from anything.
Yeah.
But it's always just like interesting to me to hear how other people find that balance, because as much as I'm like the positive guy on the internet and have a podcast about like motivation and inspiring, every single day I'm making my podcast for me to hear too.
Right. Most ways you're talking to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sitting you down to get your story, so anybody who, wants to hear your story can hear it. But I'm also like, I kind of want to know like how Alex balances doing 10 different things at the same time, because maybe it'll show me something new. Maybe it'll or at the bare minimum it shows me that I'm not in the boat alone.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. And I know that's a huge reason I made this podcast in general. And I'm sure you've got, the same idea with Happy Unhappy. It's like, just, hey, there doesn't even have to be a big win at the end of the episode of like, here's 5 tips so you can be a better mental health person. It's like, yeah, dude, I don't know. I just kind of do things and we'll see what happens. Yeah. And sometimes I feel bad about it.
Right.
Not to steal the lyrics. I just
no.
You know what? Yeah. I'll insert in the edit of this episode. I'll just like start playing the song right there.
There you go. Right there.
But it really does. It all just circles around that thing of just like sharing the story.
Yeah.
Sharing the story, sharing the idea, and just being like, oh, I think that way too. Or for me, a lot of the times it's like, oh, I don't have the answer for that either. You know what I mean? And I think that's an okay thing to have.
Definitely.
So again, that's why I wanted to like bring that up. I'm just like, okay, what do you do on your off days? How do you feel? When you feel bad, what do you do about it?
Right.
Because that's always a fascinating thing for me to hear, because I go back and forth on how I deal with it so much.
Right.
So before we keep talking in circles about that, we're about to wrap up. So if you've listened to the podcast before, you're already spoiled on what the last question is. So hopefully you haven't prepared too much. But I'm still going to ask it.
I tried not to.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I try not to listen to it. I actually don't like the show at all.
It's fucking terrible.
Oh, yeah, don't worry. I've never listened to it.
That's not true.
So the final question that I always ask everybody is, right now I want you to imagine that everyone in the world is listening to us speak. They've just heard your story. They've heard me praise your band. They've heard you talk about band marketing, and they're like, I get it. All right. You've talked about all this sort of stuff. You talk about this mental health stuff. All right. I've heard it all. What are the last words that you want to leave with all these people? Imagine that everybody can hear you right now. What is the biggest thing that you want to tell everyone?
Right now, I'm really high on this. So don't write this like on my gravestone. Like this is like what matters to me right now. Is like, I hope this doesn't piss anybody off, but shut up. Like that's my answer, is like, shut up. Whether that means shut up and listen, shut up and take time for yourself, or shut up and quit just like being an asshole, like even with people that like don't agree with you, like even if it means that they're going to think that you're wrong, like why do you got to be right all the time? Just like, that's what I'm high on right now. Shut up, listen, look around the room, soak it in, all under the umbrella of shut up.
Love it. I love it. That's a different answer than what I got before.
Yeah.
I love it. Dude, thank you so much for doing this.
Dude, thanks for having me. It was a long time coming. I'm glad we did it.
Yes, for real. This conversation has been built over the last near decade of knowing each other via the internet and then sitting down one time at a coffee shop to just talk about band stuff, which we ended up talking about here. But I'm glad that I got your story. And now I feel like I know you a lot better.
Exactly. Yeah,
Perfect.
and best of luck. I love the podcast. I think you're doing great things. I'm glad that we, I feel like we now can have like this kind of space together of like discussing podcasts back and forth.
100%.
But yeah, I love what you're doing. I think it's really awesome. Great message, and best of luck, man.
Dude, right back at you.
Yeah.
Like I said, ever since you started the podcast, I've been listening. I am such a fan. And
Right.
I feel like there's never enough of these that can exist.
Oh, no.
So I am always into it. So
Right.
I appreciate you being down to do this once again. And before we send the people away,
Yeah.
we've talked about all these projects you do, talk about the podcast, the bands, all that sort of stuff. Do you want anyone to find them or you around the internet? And where can they find you, if so?
That would probably be a good idea. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter at Alex Chaney. Yes, that's Alex twice. Chaney, Chaney. Follow my band, A Story Told, at A Story Told Band, or Spotify, Apple Music, A Story Told. It'll pop up. So that's where you can find me. That's where you can find the band.
Tell them what the podcast is. I want them to check that out.
Oh my God, I forgot about my podcast. I am the worst human. My podcast, Happy Unhappy. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I know there are others if you distribute through Anchor.
Wherever a podcast
it puts it
is.
everywhere. Yeah, wherever podcasts are. But you can find it there. There's some more information on my website as well. But Happy Unhappy Show, the show about learning to enjoy the process and not the outcome on the journey to living a life that doesn't suck.
Perfect. And just so everybody knows, that was not a fast forward edit at the end right there.
That was actually me.
That was actually Alex.
Yeah.
No, go check all those things out. I will back each of those things being very, very great things. Alex,
Thank you.
You are a great human being. You are a very talented human being, and I appreciate your time on this podcast. And now we will say goodbye as if we're not going to sit in this room together and keep talking when these microphones shut off. Thank you, dude.
Thank you.
We're
I
done.
wasn't sure if I needed to say something else.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
That was good. All right, another one in the books. Big thank you to Alex for coming on and sharing his story. It's fun getting to hear other people's perspectives and tips on how they chase multiple passions at once. In specific for me, I love hearing that. Like for me personally, that's a thing that I am always trying to balance. And I hope for some of you guys listening, it helped in some way. If anything, to validate that thought, to validate that, yes, it is okay just to try anything and everything you want to try. You don't have to stick to one job or one career path or one choice or one hobby or whatever it is. You can do whatever you want. And as we said, you can indeed, regardless of what we've been all told in the past, you can be all in on all things. So I implore you to go check out Alex's creative ventures that we spoke of here in this episode. Definitely check out A Story Told. And if you want more podcasts in your daily mix, be sure to check out his podcast called Happy Unhappy. If you like this show, you'll probably like that one too. And if you did like this show, this episode in particular, I ask you to share it on the internet, post it on social, post it in your story, tag me, tag Alex, most importantly, tag the show at WYDH Pod, or if you don't want to share it online, I simply ask to share it in real life. If somebody asks you for a podcast recommendation, it would really, really, really be rad if you told them about this one. Things like that, sharing this around is the only way that I can keep doing this, keep growing the show, keep telling more stories, sharing more advice, and all that good stuff. So I appreciate it a lot. I appreciate it more than you know. So I hope you had fun with this one. Remember to rate, review, subscribe if you haven't. It helps more than you may understand. But that was it. Thank you so much for listening. Another one in the books, and I'll be back again in the next episode with another guest you may or may not know of, sharing their story that you for sure never heard.